What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Yesterday, after Nintendo's big update had gone live and people had a chance to check it out more and more, the company started to come under fire, specifically because some of the alterations they made with one big one when it comes to game sharing with those digital games, and we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about the GameCube, which got an awesome release, actually, this week that works to solve part of the scarcity issue when it comes to some of the accessories and the controllers. Then we also had Microsoft releasing their earnings report that actually shows Microsoft going in a pretty good direction despite what a lot of their hardware figures have been showing us. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or the link in the description down below. And we're going to start today with Lost Soul Aside, which was set to come out actually a month from now, May 30th. And I've been looking at the game, right, of course, as they've shown it for quite some time now. I think it looks like a really cool action game, of course, leading into things like Devil May Cry, quite a bit over-the-top action and big set pieces. But now it appears it's been delayed for a few months. This they post up over on their social media account. And the biggest part here, obviously, just says Lost Soul Aside will now release on August 29th, 2025. Now, the reasoning for this is just to take more time to polish the game. And again, this game started off with what, like one person making it, and obviously it's blossomed into this much larger project than they were expecting. And sure, I could see them getting to the finish line and be like, okay, maybe we do need a few more months just to make sure we get it right, rather than even try to rush a day one patch, and who knows what happens there. It's better to take the time here to make it correct. Here's the thing though, they're now going to, what is that, the same day as Metal Gear Solid, or Snake Eater, Metal Gear Solid 3 Remake. So that's an interesting one to then release it right alongside of that. Although I guess they're kind of, I mean, they're still sort of action games, one being more stealth action, other one being over-the-top Devil May Cry style. Either way, I'll be keeping an eye on this one as I was looking forward to playing it at the end of May. Now I guess I'll be looking towards the end of August. Also, I've had many people ask about some of the compatibility for the Switch and the Switch 2 when it comes to the accessories, and even the system itself with the dock. Well, we can see this is posted up. This is over on Nintendo Everything. It says Switch 1 won't be compatible with the new dock Nintendo is making for Switch 2. Now, this was posted up over on Nintendo's Japan website, and when translated over, it does at least give that clarification. So, if you buy, or let's say you buy the Switch 2, you already have Switch 1 docks all over the place, and maybe you were thinking, oh, if I replace those Switch 1 docks, even over time, it won't matter, my Switch 1 can still drop in if I want to go back to it. Not the case, though. So, yeah, in a way, you will have to sort of play musical docks and move them around. Now, you may be wondering, if you're getting the Switch 2, why would you really want to still play the current Switch, since there is backwards compatibility and stuff? Well, I mean, think about it this way. If you're in a household, multiple Switches was Nintendo's plan, right? I mean, there are probably younger kids who are going to stick with the Switch because, let's face it, I don't know how many parents are like, hey, the 8-year-old definitely gets the $500 system that they're probably going to drop a couple of times in the first week. And they're probably fine with the current Switch. But you replace that dock in the family room TV, and all of a sudden there's a problem. So that's one of the big, I can see scenarios where that would be an issue. So I'm sure people will test it, and most likely it'll just be, oh, I'm not getting video out, really. It'd probably still charge, but I would assume it just be able to communicate correctly with the dock, and everything they have there to output video won't necessarily line up or then function. And then I would also say conversely, the other way, Switch 2 with the Switch 1 dock, probably the same deal there. Oh, and we did get a surprise update for Returnal. This is posted up over on Housemarque's official account, saying Returnal PS5 Pro Enhanced Patch is out now, featuring up to 2.5x the pixels on PS5 Pro for a higher resolution experience of Returnal. It's the 4th anniversary for the game, which is hard to believe that game is already 4 years old, but then you also remember how far we are really into the PS5 generation, even though many people say the PS5 generation feels like it hasn't started just yet, and kinda, but either way, Returnal, awesome release on the PS5, and I fired it up for a few minutes. I started up a run, and I was like, okay, this does look a lot sharper on the PS5 Pro specifically. Like the version now for the PS5, I never really had a problem with it. That was a whole talking point back and forth. It's 1080p upscale, and you started getting annoyed by that when you were told it was 1080p, not the other 20 hours you're playing before that. Still, if you have PS5 Pro, it's a nice update, and I would like to see more of these come out for some of their back catalog of games going forward. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with this virtual game card situation with Nintendo and how game sharing has actually changed quite a bit. Now, I will say the game card situation with your digital titles, it is a little odd. It's somewhat confusing at times when you're going through it and figuring out all the stipulations and limitations, such as the fact that you have to be within proximity of each other when you go to lend a game for 14 days, and they have to be in like your family group. And there's a lot of guardrails, we'll say, that are put up right now by Nintendo, as opposed to, hey, just pick somebody on your friends list and lend them the game for a week or two and they can play all the way through it. There's a lot of hoops you kind of have to jump through, or at least requirements met for that to happen. But people figured, hey, okay, I guess everything will stay the same, and what I'm doing now, say with game sharing for online titles, will still remain intact. Not the case, though, and Nintendo was pretty quiet about this one. Now, it was eventually noticed, of course, and then it spread online, and people were not happy about this. So, for example, you can see this is a post. This is over on Reddit, but I'll tell you now, you go to any social media platform, currently all the different forums, there's probably a thread or a post about this because, I will say, maybe more people were using this than I was expecting, okay? But again, comes down to the multiple Switches per household. They say the ability to play the same game at the same time with one digital purchase is gone with the 20.0.0 update, even if you opt out of the new virtual game card system. Now, what's happened here is essentially you were able to use one digital purchase, okay, and use it for an online game like, we'll say, Splatoon, between two different Switch systems with different profiles. And that way, yes, technically you need one game for two people to play online together. In Splatoon, I saw Animal Crossing being brought up as a big one that people were using for a while, for years even, up until this update. Now, you can do something in the system settings now with online license. However, one Switch then has to be put into like an airplane mode. Again, the steps required and people kind of wrapping their heads around this shows that it's not the most intuitive setup by Nintendo. Nonetheless, you can still do something similar to where two different Switch systems can play a single digital game at the same time, but one has to just be completely offline, which means you can't play online together. Now, some people were wondering, well, was this a bug originally? Okay, maybe they didn't mean for it to be there, even though it's been there for years, apparently. They didn't mean for it to be. Well, eagle-eyed Redditors here did notice that if you look at the archive.org for Webbed Archive, you can see that Nintendo did have the explanation as to how to do this, and that you're able to on their FAQs, which was then altered and changed with the latest update. So, yes, they technically took that feature away. Now, why would they have taken it away? Was it an accident? I don't think it was an accident based on the fact that they updated the verbiage here for their FAQ page. I think it's as straightforward as Nintendo was looking around and realized, wow, two different people are playing this one digital game and we can't have that. I mean, I think it really is that straightforward with Nintendo, even though you look at the sales, if you look at the sales for Animal Crossing, you're like, wow, I can't believe it. Obviously, it didn't do as well as it could have because two people are playing one game. No, I mean, the game sold incredibly well, but this still comes back to Nintendo being pretty strict in general when it comes to their purchases, their pricing, and in this case, just control in general over their games. So that's kind of how I'm viewing it. And it wasn't a great look for them when they go, oh, it's going to be the same, don't worry, and now it's not. So yeah, unfortunate for people who are sharing these games back and forth digitally with the game share process for online titles. I've never actually really done that with the online game specifically, but maybe as my kids got older and the new Splatoon 4 comes out or something, and we're like, yeah, let's try it out, and then I could realize, oh, I could do that, then I probably would actually use that quite a bit, to be honest. So yeah, unfortunate stuff there. Let me know though down in the comments if you were someone who is using this game share for online titles, one copy for two different Switch systems with a friend, and if you realized it was gone, because I am really curious how many people were utilizing this specific feature for the Switch generation. Next up, let's talk about a really cool release for the GameCube. There is something about this system that is very unfortunate. That comes down to the scarcity, considering it didn't really sell a lot. It didn't break 30 million systems, and you look over the PS2, 160 million apparently now. So there's plenty of PS2s to go around, not many GameCube systems, which also then rolls over to the accessory situation. like the Wavebird controller, which is getting harder and harder to find every day. And in fact, the receiver is the expensive part. If you go online, eBay, for example, and look, you'll see the receiver is generally 2 to 3 times more expensive than the Wavebird controller itself. It's kind of like the Game Boy Advance GameCube player, where the disc is the expensive part, not the hardware itself to play the Game Boy games that sit underneath of the GameCube. Well, it looks like one person has actually worked to resolve this, and we can see actually their post here. This is over on X from James, who says, "I'm excited to finally release the first public version of Wave Phoenix, my open source implementation of a Nintendo Wavebird receiver." That's right. Now you're able to use this open source implementation and create your own receiver for the GameCube Wavebird controller. Go on to say that the Wave Phoenix is 100% open source hardware and firmware. In fact, it can be built with less than $5 in parts. I question that slightly because now that this is getting out there, of course, and with the tariff situation, I'm interested to see as restocks happen with some of these parts and like PCB weigh and then putting the boards together, what we're looking at exactly. Or is this more, hey, if you have a bulk order, then you can kind of get it down to $5, and then obviously you have to be able to put all this together. Still though, really cool stuff because it's also updatable. So you can set the wireless channel by pressing X and Y on a nearby Wavebird controller. So no channel, you don't even need to use the channel wheel. Like, it's awesome. It'll sort of detect it and then just alter itself to that Wavebird. It's also much smaller than the original one. And here's the thing. I know there are people out there who are like, I don't want to build it, and that's fine. I completely understand that. You have to really understand, now is when things will start moving. Like the wheels are in motion now for people to start selling these like secondhand, right? So this is out there, the solution. Now you'll see other people build these and sell them. My question now is, would it be worth buying them at this time? Because even so, again, with the tariff stuff and all this, you're probably still looking at receivers that'll be $30 to $40 new, like built like this. Whereas you go online again, the GameCube original receiver is still like $60 to $70 for a decent one with shipping. It'll more so be something that I think will be leveraged years down the line when the Wavebird and the receiver are really hard to find and they're like hundreds of dollars. Okay, that would make more sense. But the point is, there seems to be a solution here, a good replacement, and that is really what matters. So for the future of the Wavebird, which is an awesome controller, one that more people need to try out, but it's difficult when they're this expensive, but just a solution for a replacement of a controller like that with its receiver. Still though, I might look into this and maybe try to build one. It could be a lot of fun. At the very least, hey, it might be worth looking around for some Wavebird controllers that are separated from the receiver, a bit cheaper, maybe refurbish them a bit and prepare for a wave of these receivers to start hitting different online retailers. Next up, let's talk about PlayStation Plus Essential for the month of May. These will go live May 6th, and we can see this over on PlayStation Blog. Let's see, we have Ark Survival Ascended. It's on the PS5 specifically. We have Balatro on the PS5 and PS4. And then we have Warhammer 40k Bolt Gun on the PS5 and the PS4. Gotta be honest, looking at this lineup, this might be one of the weaker Essential releases for me, specifically. Like the Ark Survival Ascended stuff, okay, I played some of the Ark Survival Evolved, and it was fine. It was good. I kind of fell out of it. I'm not really looking to get into a game like this now that basically just goes on, I feel like, forever. Now, they do mention you have up to 70 players. You can do private session multiplayer for up to 8 players, and you can still do local split screen for 2 players. So there is quite a bit of multiplayer action there to be had, but it's just not really a game I'm looking for right now. Balatro, I already own it a couple of times. It's not an expensive game, so I do have it on multiple platforms. Awesome game. I mean, look, if you've never played Balatro, but you keep hearing people talk about it, this is a great way to just check it out, right, when it releases here, and then you'll realize, oh, I should probably buy this thing physically just to have it. So, really cool game. Even if you're not into cards or like poker or something, I'm telling you, it's a game that kind of transcends that a bit with its roguelike setup here. Definitely worth a look. The other one, though, is Warhammer 40k Bolt Gun, and I was not aware of this game. I checked it out. It looks kind of cool, actually. This might be the one out of the 3, believe it or not, that I would go to and try out right away. It sort of has that aesthetic and that callback to like old school shooters. I'm talking like in the 90s. So when I saw the gameplay for it, I immediately thought of Doom or Quake. So maybe that'll be a fun little action game to check out here when I get a chance. But that's PlayStation Plus Essential happening May 6th. Again, not the strongest lineup for me, but if you haven't tried out Balatro, seems like a great chance to do it. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Microsoft with their recent earnings report. Now, this is for their Q3. Their full year will end at the end of June. So in this case, this is covering the first 3 months of the calendar year for 2025. And we can see The Verge did have a full write-up for it. And to go over some of the bullet points, the gaming revenue for Microsoft the Xbox is up 5%. Xbox content and services revenue is up 8%. This is all versus like the last year's Q3. Xbox hardware revenue is down 6%. Not as massive of a drop as we've seen, but hey, you keep dropping, eventually you're gonna get closer and closer to zero, so it can't really drop that much for, like, we're talking, remember we were seeing 30%, almost 40% drops for hardware. 6%, okay, not the worst. Now, there was also a call with Satya Nadella, of course, the CEO there at Microsoft, and he did comment on some of the stuff for gaming, as well as cloud, which cloud was really big. Said, ended the quarter as the top publisher by pre-orders and pre-installs on both Xbox and PlayStation Store, which we've talked about that a bit, right? So we keep seeing Microsoft show up with their games on PlayStation, and then they just hover around the top of the pre-order charts, the sales charts before the games come out. Forza Horizon did this, Indiana Jones did this, Sea of Thieves. So not shocking to hear that, actually, that Microsoft's kind of taking over the sales charts for both Xbox and PlayStation. PC Game Pass revenue is up 45% year over year, which also quite impressive, although, again, Game Pass in general for this year, starting out, has been rolling along pretty well. So it's not too surprising that when they have things to release and put in the service, it's going to do better. So there you go, PC Game Pass, something they were trying to get figured out. Seems like it's on the up and up there. Cloud gaming hit a new record, surpassing 150 million hours played for the first time this quarter. I know people don't like hearing about the hours or the players, but I mean, look, they're trying to just have more adoption for cloud gaming, and when you can say something like 150 million hours, it's a pretty good argument for them there. Minecraft active users up 75% since movie release. Not shocking to hear that, as we've seen other forms of media, whether it's movies or any of these streaming TV shows, typically just get more attention back to the game itself. Get this though, Xbox titles now reach 500 million monthly active users across all devices. Wow, that's a lot more than I was expecting to say. Although, look, you can count a lot of stuff in that. You can count, I guess, anyone who is fired up a game on their cell phone under their King branch there. You can count people, I'm sure, who are in the Microsoft Store who maybe fire up, I don't know, Solitaire or something. I mean, technically that's there. Like, you can play it on the Xbox Store for Windows. So I'm sure there are ways that they can kind of fudge the numbers here. But nonetheless, being able to say 500 million active users is pretty incredible in general for them. And that has been their big strategy here the whole way when it comes to gaming, is ways to onboard more and more consumers, because Microsoft is usually seen as more the corporate side with their cloud stuff. In this case, though, they're able to get closer to consumers through gaming and I'm sure other forms of media, as it sounds like they're going to be exploring more and more with movies and TV series like everyone else is. Hopefully it's just a bit better than what they've done with things like Halo, but seems like Minecraft, while it didn't review the greatest, it's making a ton of money, and it seems like it's bringing a lot of interest in, so it actually seems like Microsoft is in a pretty good spot. They had to level out a bit with their hardware, and we'll see how things go with their next generation launch. But it seems like the software front, yes, going to PlayStation, while it had some early growing pains, I mean, it's really pumping up their numbers a bit, and now they're rolling along. In fact, they're expecting just more growth in general on the software side, and hey, maybe they'll get to the point where the hardware can't go much lower, and it rebounds a little bit and it goes up. If that hardware ever goes up like 1 or 2%, it's like, wow, they were just green across the board. Okay, and now Microsoft can start rolling into next generation with a bit more strength. And before we go to the comments of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, do you use game sharing with another person for PlayStation, Xbox, or Nintendo? 70% say no, 30% say yes. I mean, I figured it would be the majority saying no, because I think there's still many people who aren't even aware that you can do game sharing. So for an example, with PlayStation or Xbox, you can technically share your digital purchases with someone else. It's like a whole process to link stuff together, but you can do it. And I mean, for a while, Nintendo has had that option even for online play with a single copy. I was just curious how many people were consistently taking advantage of this. Some of it may be because it's purposely complicated, I think, by these different platform holders. It's not as easy as press a button on it to share, and then your list of friends come up, and you press a button, and all of a sudden you're sharing with a single person. With like PlayStation, Xbox, you have to legitimately just attach your account to a single person for like all the games. You end up with like a game sharing buddy or something. So it is another question, though, as we get more and more towards that digital future, how exactly this can maybe grow a bit more to where it's more advantageous to the consumer, because right now it does seem like a lot of things are put in place just to make it annoying for consumers to be able to share their digital games. And we'll finish up with the comments of the day. We'll start with the members comment here. This is from Restroom. It says, Titanfall 2 needs to be ported to the Switch 2. First of all, I love the energy for Titanfall 2 just getting maybe exposure to a new audience, but I feel like that's becoming the solution for everything now. Just port it to the Switch. Go ahead. Although we have seen some like weird like games just get it now. Deadly Premonition, remember that direct where that popped up? I was like, oh, what in the world? Or when we saw Star Wars The Force Unleashed, the first one, the Wii version that got ported over to the system. So I guess nothing's off the table and anything can happen at this point with EA maybe even going into their own back catalog with Titanfall 2 and see what happens on the Switch 2. But it just feels like, while everybody knows, at least it seems that way, that Titanfall 3 should be something they pursue, they don't seem to be doing it. So maybe they're just not interested in a shooter like that to be next to Battlefield, which there is a new Battlefield coming out, we think, by the end of this year. And that's what they're really pushing for now, and let Respawn do other things as they hold up Apex Legend. And of course, we know they're working on the Jedi series. And then we'll go over to the comment of the day. This is from Mike, who says, a better question is, do you think the price of the Switch 1 will actually decrease anytime soon? So I've thought about this, all right? I'm like, okay, how would they navigate a bunch of SKUs now alongside of the Switch 2? Because technically they have the Mario Kart bundle at $500. They have the regular Switch 2 at $450. Then you go down to the OLED at $350. Then the red box Switch at $300. Then the Switch Lite at $200. And it's like, wow, there's a lot to stock and figure out logistically. I think it would make sense for them to almost wipe out all the Switch systems and refine it down to maybe one that they release at like $250. And sure, they'd cut some things back, but if they could figure that out and more simplify that entire process, it might be better for them. Otherwise, they'd probably eliminate the OLED Switch because that is the most expensive of the bunch for them with those three: the Lite, the red box, and the OLED, and then just keep the Lite and the red box and roll along with the Switch 2, because they've made it very, very clear the Switch 1 is going to be around for a while. They're releasing games 2026, and Doug Bowser has said, yes, basically, hey, we do have the Switch Lite at $200 if you can't technically buy the Switch 2 right now. So I don't think that's going away anytime soon. I'm just more curious if they have plans to do something like a 2DS XL when that got announced after after what we saw with the Switch, and then, oh yeah, here comes Nintendo with a new version for their last generation handheld. Anything's possible again, and I wouldn't be shocked if Nintendo did something weird like that after the Switch 2 comes out. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you want to hear more about what I think right now is the frontrunner for Game of the Year in Claire Obscure Expedition 33. I'll leave that right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.